The Great Novoselovka is encircled. The Ukrainian Armed Forces front has crumbled, and the Russian army is now unstoppable. Greetings, friends. Today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine as of November 25, 2024. A significant number of events have occurred today, so let's get started. We begin with the Zaporizhia direction, where, according to some experts, the armed forces of the Russian Federation have taken control of the settlement of Belov. However, some sources report that Russian units have only managed to secure positions in the southeastern part of the area. As for objective control footage, no video evidence has emerged to confirm this yet. Only footage of Russian drones at work is available. These videos show explosives being dropped on Ukrainian armed forces forward positions, which may have preceded the Russian assault, though this remains unconfirmed. We await additional footage that may clarify the situation soon. Some sources suggest that the Russian army may have moved to the next stage of the Zaporizhia offensive. In this context, the primary objective of the Russian units seems to be advancing toward the settlement of Malotokmachka from the northeast. It's worth noting that since November 1st, there has been a significant amount of geolocated strikes, including aerial bombings and artillery attacks, targeting the correctional facility located in the southeastern part of Malotokmachka. It's possible that Russian forces have completed their artillery preparations and are now entering the active assault phase. This is the view of some experts, while others believe the main goal is not to storm Malotokmachka, but to improve tactical positions on the western flank before a potential offensive from Bohati, Novokarlivka, and Mern toward Chernihiv, Novoselovka, and Huliaipol. Should Russian units successfully execute this attack, it would enable the Russian army to establish physical control over the supply route between the Kurakhove and Huliaipol agglomerations. While this operation would not completely sever logistics or destroy the connection between the two Ukrainian defense nodes, it would certainly lengthen the logistical chain. Overall, this would drive a wedge between the two defense hubs, potentially allowing the Russian army to advance further north to encircle one or both settlements. Now, let's move on to the situation near Velika Novosilka, where various reports have emerged. We'll start with a brief analytical summary from Ukrainian sources, possibly from a Ukrainian officer stationed in the area. The officer notes that the situation in the Velika Novosilka direction is critically dire. Velika Novosilka serves as a defensive hub, essentially protecting both the Kurakhove and Huliaipol directions. If Velika Novosilka falls, the flanks of both Kurakhove and Huliaipol will be exposed and vulnerable. Consequently, the Ukrainian armed forces will attempt to hold on to Velika Novosilka for as long as possible. However, according to recent objective control footage and data from this direction, it seems increasingly likely that Velika Novosilka will fall to Russian forces even before the settlement of Kurakhove does. Focusing on the western direction, reports indicate that the Russian army has advanced approximately 1 kilometer toward the settlement of Novoselovka. This maneuver appears to aim at cutting off Highway 0510 and isolating Velika Novosilka. After a successful operation near Novosilka, we might see further Russian attempts to advance toward Huliaipol in the near future. It's evident that the Russian army is gradually working to sever Velika Novosilka from its supply lines on the western side. On the eastern flank, the situation is even more dire. Over the past few days, Russian units have managed to breach Ukrainian defenses and approach Velika Novosilka closely. In some areas, Russian forces have already entered the settlement itself. This paints a grim picture for the Ukrainian defenses in the region as the Russian army continues to press its offensive. At least 4 attack directions are noted here. Let's start with the southeastern assault, where the primary goal is to secure a foothold within Velika Novosilka itself. According to various cartographic services, both pro-Ukrainian and neutral, it appears that over the past day, the Russian army has indeed managed to consolidate positions at farms located southeast of Velika Novosilka. These farms have not yet been fully cleared, as Ukrainian units remain present, but it seems to be only a matter of time. Objective control footage is also available, showing a series of FPV drone strikes targeting Russian assault troops engaged in storming Velika Novosilka. One of the episodes was geolocated at this exact point, enabling us to update maps along this tree line in favor of the Russian armed forces. Regarding this sector, one crucial point to understand is that the Russian army is currently advancing between two rivers, Kashlyhach and Shaitanka. This creates a very narrow maneuvering corridor, making the attack inherently risky. Nevertheless, the Russian army appears to be advancing successfully. It seems unlikely that they plan to penetrate deeply into the urban area of Velika Novosilka. Instead, the objective may be to secure the southeastern outskirts and take control of key routes within the settlement itself. It's important to note that while advancing between two rivers is challenging for Russian forces, Velika Novosilka itself is divided into 4 sections by 3 rivers: Mokry Yali, Kashlyhach, and Shaitanka. These rivers split the town into southwestern, southern, central, and northeastern sections, each separated by waterways and connected by a limited number of bridges, around 9 in total. Many military experts expect the destruction of these bridges to commence as soon as the Russian army transitions to the final battle for Velika Novosilka. A question arises: why haven't the bridges been destroyed yet? The explanation seems straightforward. At this stage, the Russian army is allowing Ukrainian forces to reinforce Velika Novosilka, stabilizing their frontline positions. Once a significant number of Ukrainian units are concentrated in the settlement, the Russian army will likely destroy the bridges, preventing Ukrainian troops from retreating and essentially trapping them within the ruins of Velika Novosilka. Thus, the destruction of bridges will coincide with a large-scale buildup of Ukrainian forces in the town. Moving to the central direction, which stretches westward from Shakhtarske toward the settlement of Novy Komar, materials and video footage from objective control systems, as well as updates from cartographic services, suggest that the Russian army has managed to penetrate deep into the Ukrainian defensive lines. This has significantly reduced the distance to Highway 0518, which connects Velika Novosilka and Rozdolne. Russian sources have released footage showing a large convoy of Russian military vehicles advancing toward the highway near Novy Komar. Some vehicles may have been struck by drones and others possibly by artillery fire. Despite these Ukrainian efforts to slow the Russian advance, Russian troops successfully reached strongpoints, deployed forces, and reportedly cleared the area. The furthest geolocated point of Russian advancement is a small strongpoint along a tree line south of Rozdolne. Based on this footage, the map has been adjusted in favor of Russian control. What was previously considered contested territory is now under solid Russian control. Footage of Russian forces clearing additional strongpoints in the area has also been published. In these videos, Russian assault groups can be seen moving from south to north, systematically eliminating strongpoints one by one. The primary objective of this advance is to bypass Rozdolny from the south and southeast, gaining access to Highway 0518. If the situation develops favorably, the Russians may push toward Novy Komar. In this case, Velika Novosilka would likely find itself not just operationally encircled, but fully encased in a pocket. This scenario was highlighted yesterday by both Ukrainian and Russian sources. Ukrainian forces are reportedly facing a critical shortage of infantry in the area. Videos show Russian soldiers taking over well-fortified Ukrainian positions at the entrance to Velika Novosilka without encountering resistance, as the positions were left completely unguarded. Thus, our advance yesterday in this area was primarily limited by distances and the need to consolidate positions at newly gained lines, including clearing mines from the territory. Additionally, preparations were underway for the assault on a larger settlement. Yesterday, our forces completed their advance to the highway connecting Velika Novosilka and Bohatyr, as well as the liberation of Rozdolna. Now, the only obstacle on their path is a strongpoint at the intersection of this highway and a branch road leading to the village, as well as Novy Komar, where the enemy is expected to attempt to halt us. Though how successful they'll be remains to be seen. We had assumed the enemy would have enough infantry to occupy the large and well-fortified strongpoints on the outer and inner defensive lines of Velika Novosilka. In reality, however, these positions turned out to be empty. Overall, it's now evident to everyone that the Ukrainian Armed Forces front line here has simply collapsed. The question remains, how and with what forces will the enemy manage to stabilize it? Let's now move to the southern Donetsk direction, where we are receiving a large amount of geolocated data. Starting with the village of Trudov, footage released by the 71st Jaeger Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces shows explosives being dropped on the forward positions of Russian forces. Based on this objective control footage, the map has been updated in favor of the Russian army. Currently, Russian forces control at least 50% of the village and are gradually advancing northward toward Uspenivka and a fortified strongpoint within the responsibility zone of the 72nd Mechanized Brigade. Next, we turn to the villages of Yelizavetivka, Ilinka, and Romanivka. Significant changes have occurred on the map in this area. Let's compare it to how the map looked just yesterday. All these settlements were previously either contested or firmly under Ukrainian control. Now we are witnessing the formation of initial pockets. Reliable sources reported yesterday that a unit from the 79th Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces was encircled near the village of Ilinka. This likely pertains to strongpoints situated along the Hlinyana Gully. This success by the Russian army was achieved through a rapid advance along the Maximilianivka-Romanivka line. Over several days, regular map updates showed steady progress along this axis, culminating in the collapse of the Ukrainian defense between Maximilianivka and Romanivka. Russian forces made a decisive push, reaching Shevchenko Street in Romanivka, effectively cutting off Ukrainian units in Yelizavetivka. Objective control footage also confirms activity in the southeastern part of Yelizavetivka. Footage released by the 214th Ukrainian Special Battalion shows explosives being dropped on Russian forward positions at farms southeast of Yelizavetivka. However, this footage also led to updates in favor of Russian forces on the map. In summary, the battle around Uspenivka and strongpoints southeast along the Suky Yali River is nearing its conclusion. Next, we move to the town of Kurakhove. As of this morning, reports indicate that fighting is ongoing in the central part of the town near school number. However, no objective control footage or frontline updates have been published by either neutral or Ukrainian cartographic services. Additionally, reports indicate that Russian forces have fully cleared the settlement of Berestki. This information has been corroborated by both pro-Ukrainian and pro-Russian cartographic services as of yesterday. In the coming days, the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation may officially report this progress. Next, we turn to the area west of Selidov, where significant activity has also been observed. Notice how Russian forces have made considerable advances westward over the past 24 hours, moving towards several small, unnamed villages. Starting in the south, Russian forces have made gains in the village of Zoraya, currently controlling up to 60% of this settlement, according to neutral cartographic sources. Further progress is also noted westward toward Pustinka and Yurivka. The pace and speed of the advance are increasing significantly, as are the number of square kilometers gained daily. We can see that, at this stage, the Ukrainian armed forces are unable to offer any meaningful resistance, and their defenses are weakening. It appears there are significant issues with manpower and no rotations are being conducted. On the other hand, it is clear that the Russian army is attempting to outflank Pokrovsk from the southwest and west. The apparent objective of this offensive in this sector is to reach the settlements of Molodetske and Novopidorodny.